Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well so far. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the 2023 Seahawks draft class in this video. So we're going to do a little bit more discussion of this very intriguing draft class. Specifically, I want to take a look at how the pundits, the experts, the professionals felt about it. But first, I want to briefly go over my schedule tonight so you guys are made aware of ahead of time because tonight's actually a pretty big night. The schedule drops in a few hours, and like I've said before, I'm not going to look at it until I'm live with the Hawk's Nest tonight on his channel. We are going to be doing a live react to the schedule release tonight. I'm going to do everything I can to not look at it until we're on stream. Should start around 7 o'clock Pacific. Me and Brandon are going to react live to the schedule, go game by game for a couple hours, and see how we end up feeling about this schedule. So, hope to see you guys there. And if you can't make it, then watch the recording, I guess. Or you can wait until the next day, probably tomorrow morning. I'll make a video with a more finalized and hammered in feel on the schedule because I'll have had some time to look at it and think about it. If you want the live reaction, that's going to be on the Hawk's Nest channel tonight, though. And then after that stream is over, I'm going to go pick up my copy of a brand new video game release, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So, I'm going to go pick it up. I'm going to come home. I'm going to put it in my Switch. I'm going to install it. And by about 9:30, I should be streaming it on Twitch. And this is one of the most anticipated games of the year, and it is also a sequel to a game that people loved when I streamed. I streamed Breath of the Wild earlier this year, and those streams got a ton of attendance, way more than most of my video game streams on Twitch usually do. People loved me playing Zelda, Breath of the Wild on stream. So maybe it's a Zelda thing, I don't know, but I'm going to be playing the sequel tonight starting at about 9:30, and I hope to see you guys there if that sounds like something that interests you. Obviously, it's a new release, so some people are going to want to not spoil themselves on it, going to want to experience the game for themselves when they get it. But if you're not one of those people, then I hope to see you there tonight. Again, we're going to start at about 9:30, go until maybe 1 a.m. or so. I don't know exactly. Depends on how things are going. But I hope to see you there. All right, that's enough of that. So this video, we're going to take a look at the pundits. We're going to take a look at the guys who get paid a lot of money to talk about the draft, get paid a lot of money to talk about which teams did well in the draft and which teams didn't. And basically the question is, how did they feel about the Seahawks 2023 draft class? And generally, I think you guys know this, it's mostly positive. Now understand that grading a draft class before they play is kind of a silly endeavor to a certain extent. There's definitely a layer to it where you have to wonder, like, what are you basing this on? These guys haven't even played NFL football yet. So how can you grade anything yet? But they do the best that they can with the information that they have. They form their grades based off of their pre-existing beliefs on these players, and they come up with a grade for each draft class. Now, personally, I think I've said this before, but personally, I gave the Seahawks 2023 draft class a B+. But in terms of the players we got, let me say this. In terms of the players that we got, it's more like A-, maybe even A. I do believe that. My issue with the draft class, it's not even really an issue. My concern is how are we going to utilize these players? Are we going to utilize them to the best of their ability? So the players themselves are great. A-, A-type draft class. My question is, are you going to put them in the right situations to maximize themselves? If you do that, then yeah, it's an A- or A draft class. But if you continue to do things the way you did it last year with your offensive and defensive formations and personnel groupings, then I'm a little more in the B+ territory. So I'll believe it when I see it. I'll put it like that. But anyway, that would be my grade on the class. Now let's take a look at some stuff here from the pundits. First, this is probably the juiciest thing that I found about our draft class. This is from Matt Miller of ESPN. I don't have his whole article, but he actually ranks his 100 favorite draft picks from the 2023 class. And the Seahawks have 2 picks in the top 5 2 picks in the top 5, including the number 1 pick. He thinks that Jackson Smith-Njigba was the best draft pick that any team made in the entire draft. So that's a pretty good start right there. And then he says Devon Witherspoon was number 5. So I don't know what grade he would have given our class, but it must have been a pretty good one if he thinks both of our first round picks are that good. So, hey, that's a pretty good start, right? And while we're on the subject of ESPN, I don't have the article either because it's behind the ESPN Plus paywall, but Field Goals does give the quick and dirty summary of it. Mel Kiper of ESPN only gave 2 teams an A in the 2023 draft, and the Seahawks were one of them. It was the Eagles and the Seahawks. Makes a lot of sense why he would give an A to the Eagles, and he also felt like the Seahawks deserved an A. Now, he did admit part of the reason why he gave them an A was he felt like he owed them because he gave them a B+ last year. If it wasn't for that, he might have given it more like an A-, but it's still one of the best. So, off to a really good start with these ESPN guys. Moving along, I want to go over to PFF here. PFF grades our draft class. They go into some closer detail about it in this article. You can read the details of how they felt about each pick if you'd like to. But just talking about the grade, they gave us an A. So they're really liking our class as well. Another expert, another professional, another major NFL website giving us really positive feedback on our draft class. Even better than the grade that I would personally give them. So pretty good. And then let's go over to Pro Football Network, another one of the biggest draft websites on the internet. And you can see them break it down pick by pick. A on both of our first round picks. Second round picks, not so much. B-, C-, didn't really like it. By the way, you will notice that a lot of the negativity that there is for our draft class comes from the Charbonnet pick. B- on the Bradford pick. D+ on the Cameron Young pick. There's also a little bit of negativity there, although not as much as I would have expected. Love Mike Morris, love Oluwatimi, Jarek Reed B-, McIntosh B-, which I really disagree with. I didn't see anybody thinking he was going to be there in the 7th. But anyway, they did give us an A overall because the first round picks are more important than the other picks in their mind, of course. So that's another really, really strong indicator there. So that's another major website that absolutely loves what we're doing. And then let's go over to The Athletic, who ranked every draft class 1 to 32. And they gave the Seahawks, they didn't give us a grade, but they did give us the 4th best draft class. They ranked us number 4. And the teams we were behind were, I believe, the Texans, which I don't really agree with, the Colts, and the Eagles, which, Colts and Eagles, they did pretty dang well for themselves. But we were 4th. So if they did give us a letter grade, probably be around like an A or an A-. It really depends on how friendly they want to be with their grades. And I'll tell you, I will acknowledge this. Some of these sites are very, very liberal with the A's. Like, they're like a teacher that just wants to get the grading over with so they can go, I don't know, smoke weed or something. But some of them aren't. Like, if you look at the Mel Kiper distribution, he only gave out 2 A's and 2 A-. And then he mostly gave out B's. And then he gave out some B- and B+. So, not easy to earn a good grade from him, and we got it. Now, on the other hand, I think PFF was a little more friendly to teams. I think they gave out quite a few A's, but there were definitely some bad grades here. I think they gave, the Niners a C-, although that's easy when you take a kicker in the 3rd round. But some of these sites, they're not easy to impress, and we, by and large, impress them. That being said, there were some experts, some pundits, that didn't love our class as much as a lot of these places. So let's take a look at those. And I can't find anybody that dislikes our picks, but let's find some that don't love them. NFL.com gave us an A-, which is still a really good grade, obviously. I'm not trying to act like they gave us... I'm not trying to do the whole thing where you freak out because IGN gave a Zelda game and a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. I'm not doing the thing where Rotten Tomatoes gives a movie a 95 and we freak out because it's not 100. You know, I'm not doing that. But they did give us an A-, mostly because they really didn't like our day 2 that much. They gave us a C+ for the Charbonnet and Derek Hall picks. Again, most of the negativity from our draft seems to stem from the Charbonnet thing. And I kind of get it, but I think it's also being drastically overplayed and over-exaggerated. We've also got Fox Sports here. They gave us a B+. They didn't go into a lot of detail on why they felt that way about our class or any other class, but obviously a B plus is still a really good grade. It's the grade that I currently have for them. And then you have Sporting News, also a B plus. They really liked the picks of Smith, Najigba, and Charbonnet. They really liked Witherspoon. They really liked Hall. And then everything else they seemed kind of dismissive of. Not disliking it, but they were dismissive of it. So B plus, which again, that's what I gave them as of right now. CBS. Now, CBS, this is where things get a little bit bumpier. They gave us a flat B. And the reason why they gave us a B is Charbonnet, basically. Because we already have Kenneth Walker. That's seems to be the crux of it to me. Now, they didn't love Witherspoon, okay. But the thing that really kind of seemed to suck their grade down, the thing that they were truly negative about was Charbonnet. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second here because they're not the only one. WalterFootball, of all the pundit sites that I found that gave grades to draft classes, gave us the lowest grade, a B minus. They gave us a decent grade. They thought we did okay. And if you read their explanation, it's pretty simple. They're wondering, why did you take Witherspoon when Carroll's always done such a good job getting corners in the middle to late rounds? Why'd you take a running back when you already have Kenneth Walker? So the people who don't like our class that much seem to be leaning on those two things. Witherspoon isn't a good pick because we always get good stuff out of our corners, and Charbonnet isn't a good pick because he's a running back and we already have a running back. I completely understand the modern philosophy of not spending a first-round pick on a running back. I think that quite often it's very defensible and very often correct. But I feel like some people just take it a little too far. I understand where it comes from to a certain point, but man, people take it far. I mean, last year, let's think about this for a second. We had K9 last year, and I know K9's probably going to be better this year because it's his second year in the NFL, but there were times in the year where Penny had gotten hurt out for the year. Walker missed time because of an injury and played through an injury at many points during the season. DJ Dallas missed time. Travis Homer got injured like 3 separate times last year. There were times last year where we were down to Tony Jones. We had basically no running back. We had a guy who has terrible vision, who literally can't see anything, as our only running back for a chunk of the season. So I'm just looking at that, and I go, how can you be... And by the way, we lose Penny and Homer. Those guys aren't coming back. We know that. We had 2 running backs on the depth chart when the draft started, so I don't understand why people are so down on it. I can understand not loving it. I didn't love it either. But the rampant hatred and negativity that some people have towards the Charbonnet pick, that's... I don't know. It seems like to me like people are taking the philosophy of don't spend early picks on a running back too far. We spent a mid-late second-round pick on a running back. Is that really a capital offense? Maybe it's not optimal, but you can't tell me it's bad, or even close to bad. The Witherspoon thing, I don't know. I think that this team is sick of having lockdown corners that never get targeted because they can pick on other people. That's my best guess. And they want to get a sure thing, and they feel like Witherspoon is a sure thing as far as being a lockdown cornerback goes. I mean, there wasn't a Tariq Woolen in this draft. There wasn't. And even if there was, just because in theory he might be a Tariq Woolen doesn't mean he will be in practice. But to me, the people who didn't like our class basically leaned on those two things. So that's what I would say about it. But as you can see, if you go over it collectively, most of the experts loved our draft. A couple of websites, I should say, liked it. And then I found WalterFootball that didn't care for it that much. So that's the roundup. Let me know what you guys think about it all. Let me know if you guys know of another website that has graded out our draft and has maybe controversial things to say. Maybe there's a site out there that gave us like a C. Maybe there's a site out there that really didn't like our draft at all. Maybe they gave us an F. I pretty much never see these websites give out Fs for any draft class, honestly. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys later tonight. Again, stream on the Hawks Nest channel tonight, reacting to the schedule, and then Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coming up on Twitch at night. Go Hawks.